A January thaw for the Twin Cities. All of your weekend forecast tonight at 10.
Good evening, I'm Hugh Downs.
And I'm Barbara Walters, and this is 2020.
From ABC News, around the world and into your home, the stories that touch your life with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. This is 2020. Tonight,
Mrs. Clinton, how did you get in this mess?
the First Lady and Barbara Walters face to face, confronting the damaging new claims making sensational headlines.
The picture that's coming out is of this domineering First Lady.
What does she say about Whitewater? The travel office scandal. The mysterious death of Vincent Foster.
We've tried, maybe not as smartly as we could have, to answer people's questions.
And her impact on the president's future.
Are you becoming a political liability?
A Barbara Walters exclusive with the First Lady. Under attack on all sides and fighting back. Finally, Hillary Clinton speaks out. And a story to share with family and friends. The wonder of magnificent humanity. She needed a miracle to live.
I had 2 young kids that needed me, you know, and I knew that I couldn't leave.
And she got one from a total stranger.
I don't think I ever got nervous until I walked into the hospital that day.
An extraordinary gift that linked them forever, body and soul.
I touched her life, but she touched mine also.
We brought them together, and others. A joyous meeting of medical donors and the people they saved.
How you doing, honey?
Bob Brown, with a story of human compassion that knows no bounds. A gift from a stranger. Plus, a must-see if you wear glasses or dread the thought, someday, this could be you. They're lining up for the hot new technique that puts distance in focus.
That is great. Did it hurt at all? No.
Dr. Timothy Johnson highlights the booming business that's correcting nearsightedness permanently. Throw away your glasses. Those stories tonight, January 12, 1996, after this brief message.
Now, without a pin, a toothpick, a gizmo, it separates, it defines. Lash by Lash. New Lash by Lash mascara by Maybelline. There's nothing like it. Pull out the brush and it wipes off the gunk. Not once, twice. No clumps to pick at, no globs to pick off. Just perfectly separated lashes. Get the point? New Lash by Lash mascara.
Maybe she's born with it.
So, Bob, I heard you took Sally up to a little lodge in the woods.
Well, sort of.
She didn't mind roughing it?
Not really.
Even with all those wild animals?
She loves animals.
Yeah, I bet the fish were biting, huh?
You could say that.
Man, that's the life, you know? Little boating, little swimming, just you, Sally, alone in the middle of nowhere.
So where is this place? Disney World.
Disney World.
Call 1-407-WDisney and make the dream come true.
Honey, I'm thinking the woods, the water, and a pack of wild animals. Hello?
Tonight, Hillary Clinton under siege. This week, the spotlight was supposed to be on her important new book about the condition of children in America, and we will talk about that a bit later. But there's now an avalanche of serious charges and sharp criticism of the First Lady, who has been called a congenital liar by a columnist, her credibility and integrity on the line. And yet many Americans don't understand the fuss. What has she done, if anything, that's illegal? Has she been telling the truth? This week, Barbara braved the storm to sit down at the White House for an exclusive interview with the First Lady.
Well, the headlines this week dealt with records suddenly found and memos newly discovered, a paper trail that has led even some Clinton loyalists to wonder, is Hillary Clinton a liability to the president? The White House was a picture postcard in this week's snow, as quiet and still outside and inside as I've ever seen it. When we met with Mrs. Clinton, she appeared confident and serene, seemingly unruffled by this week's storm of controversy. She'd read the accusations that she was inconsistent, or worse, a liar, and she was ready to sit down and reply. Mrs. Clinton, instead of your new book being the issue, you have become the issue. How did did you get in this mess where your whole credibility is being questioned?
Oh, I ask myself that every day, Barbara, because it's very surprising and confusing to me. But we've had questions raised for the last 4 years, and eventually they're answered, and they go away, and more questions come up, and we'll just keep doing our best to answer them, and hopefully it'll end at some point.
Are you distressed?
Occasionally I get a little distressed, a little sad, a little angry, irritated. I think that's only natural, but I know that that's part of the territory, and we'll just keep plowing through and trying to get to the end of this.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that are so much in the news this week. The travel office. Last week, a 1993 memo by a former White House aide, David Watkins, was made public in which he says that you were responsible for the firing of 7 people in the White House travel office because you wanted to have an Arkansas travel agency take its place. And there would have been nothing illegal about your doing that. But you have said you had no idea how the decision was made and that you had nothing to do with it. Is he lying?
Well, I think what is fair to say is that I did voice concern about the financial mismanagement that was discovered when the president arrived here in the White House travel office. I think that everyone who knew about it was quite concerned and wanted it to be taken care of. But I did not make the decisions. I did not direct anyone to make the decisions. But I have absolutely no doubt that I did express concern because I was concerned about any kind of financial mismanagement.
So is it a question of how much concern? I mean, when you say you had nothing to do with it and he says you had everything to do with it, he's either not telling the truth or it's a misinterpretation, or where are we?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not aware exactly of what led him to say that. But certainly Mac McClarty, who was the chief of staff, took responsibility for the decisions, has said very clearly, I did not tell him to do anything. He made the decisions, but he did it in consultation with many people whose advice he sought, whose concern he listened to. So I think, you know, that's something that I'll have to let someone else explain.
You see, the picture that's coming out is of this domineering First Lady, you know that. And in his memo, he refers to an earlier incident in which he said you'd been furious over his failure to transfer certain Secret Service agents. He says he feared any delay in firing the travel office members would not have been tolerated by you. He said there would be hell to pay. What was the Secret Service incident?
Well, I'm not sure what David Watkins is talking about. I can tell you what I was concerned about, and again expressed it. There had been some stories that were in the press attributed to Secret Service agents.
That you had thrown a lamp or a Bible
or a
at
Bible
your husband.
or a Mercedes-Benz, or, you know, there were many variations on it. When stories like that get into what I consider to be, you know, respectable journalism, it does bother me, and it particularly bothered me that the Secret Service was being used to try to substantiate untrue stories, and I couldn't understand that. So I was concerned about it and expressed that concern.
Did you ask to have certain Secret Service members put in another detail?
No. I wanted the situation cleared up, because both for the Secret Service's sake, which is, after all, charged with a very difficult task, and we have a great relationship with them, but also for my sake. I mean, you know, I have a pretty good arm. If I'd thrown a lamp at somebody, I think you would have known about it. And, you know, when those things are said, I just don't want that to get a life of its own.
So you wanted the situation controlled, or use your words?
Well, I wanted, for example, the Secret Service to be able to say that didn't happen.
Did they?
Oh, yes. I mean, those stories stopped.
Did you ever throw a lamp at your husband?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever throw a Bible at your husband?
No, I didn't.
Do you have a terrible temper?
No, but I do get angry about things. I'm not going to deny that. I do. There are things that I think are wrong, or things that I think should be fixed, and I am not at all shy about expressing my opinion. I try to be a direct person, but I don't tell people what to do. I say, here's what I think, and I'm concerned about this.
Then there is the question of Madison Guarantee, a failed savings and loan that regulators say financed shady real estate deals. The bank's failure cost taxpayers $60 million. Hillary Clinton was what her law firm called the billing partner for the Madison account. There is a dispute as to how much work you did for the Madison Guarantee. You have said it was minimal. Investigators say you had a more involved relationship. Mrs. Clinton, I think most people don't understand it. They don't care how much you build or how much money you made. But what they do think is, were you aware of any shady practices or actual wrongdoing on the part of this savings and loan for which you did legal work?
Absolutely not.
You did not know?
Absolutely
Even
not.
in their real estate deals?
No, absolutely not. And in fact, this whole matter originated because of this Whitewater land deal. And we said when that came up that this was a failed real estate transaction about 20 years ago now, where we lost money, and people said, well, prove it. So we proved that. Then they said, well, okay, how about this? The person you were in business with also later bought a savings and loan.
Mr. McDougal.
Mr. McDougal. Did you get money from that savings and loan? Was the money channeled to you? We said absolutely not.
Did it go towards the president's campaign?
Right, absolutely not. And in fact, an independent study that has been done for the Resolution Trust Corporation, the RTC, by an independent law firm, has looked at that Whitewater and Madison matter and said, indeed, what we said 3 and 4 years ago was the case.
But they didn't have the billing records that they now have.
Well, but that is not really the issue. You know, a month ago, people were jumping up and down because the billing records were lost, and they thought somebody might have destroyed them. Now the records are found, and they're jumping up and down. But I'm glad the records were found. I wish they had been found a year or two ago, because they verify what I've been saying from the very beginning. I worked about an hour a week for 15 months. That was not a lot of work for me, certainly.
One of the fraudulent loans of Madison Guarantee, which has gotten suddenly a lot of attention, is something called Castle Grande. In a sworn statement, you said you had no memory of working on Castle Grande.
Right.
But these billing records show you made 14 to 16 phone calls to one of the major participants, a man named Seth Ward, and also drew up documents connected with Castle Grande. The big thing about this, again, to most people, is again a contradiction.
And there's not a contradiction. Castle Grande was a trailer park on a piece of property that was about 1,000 acres big. I never did work for Castle Grande, never at all. And so when I was asked about it last year, I didn't recognize it, I didn't remember it. The billing records show I did not do work for Castle Grande. I did work for something called IDC, which was not related to Castle Grande.
Was that Seth?
And Seth Ward was involved in that on
Separate
behalf.
deal.
Separate deal completely. So, you know, we've asked Mr. D'Amato, tell us what the inconsistencies are. I mean, anytime we've been accused of something, eventually we have proven that it was a dry hole, that it was just another in the string of accusations. And we will do the same with these.
Mrs. Clinton, while we are clearing up rumors, you know there is the reoccurring rumor about you and Vince Foster. What was your relationship with him?
Oh, he was one of my dearest friends, Barbara. He was a colleague, he was a partner. He'd been a friend of my husband's since they were boys of 4 or 5 years of age, and I miss him. I miss him very much. And I just wish he could be left in peace, because he was a wonderful man to everyone who knew him.
You know, there is then this whole business after his suicide of whether you tried to have records removed or have them examined before they were shown to the Justice Department. And you have said that you did nothing to impede the investigation into his death, had no concern over access to the documents in his office. But then there were these blizzard of phone calls, you were in Arkansas, visiting your mother, from the Chief of Staff, Maggie Williams, from the White House Counsel, Bernard Nussbaum, from your close friend, Susan Thomas's phone calls back and forth, back and forth. And when Mrs. Williams and Ms. Thomason testified before the Senate committee, they keep saying they can't remember. So again, it all seems very mysterious, and it looks as if you had something to cover up. What?
You know, I want to be very clear about this.
Okay.
There were no documents taken out of Vince Foster's office on the night he died, and I did not direct anyone to interfere in any investigation. I know very well what we were talking about. We were grieving, we were supporting each other. I was asking questions about how other people who were close friends and colleagues of Vince were doing, how his family was doing, and some of those phone conversations consisted of us sobbing on the phone.
And nothing was taken from Vince Foster's office that you asked to have looked over, kept from the eyes of the
I didn't even know
government?
he had documents of mine in his office, so that doesn't make any sense at all.
You know, on the one hand, the fact that these two records, the billing records and the travel memo come up this week is certainly not something you could have wanted when you're trying to publicize a book,
That's right,
Okay.
absolutely.
Although Senator D'Amato said, implies that they were going to be found anyway, and that's why you had to release them. But the White House is not Grandma's attic, and for 2 years people have been looking for these records. They were in your personal effects. I mean, one wonders why they were just found now.
Well, one of them was.
What does it look like up there with your records?
It is a mess. I mean, that is something that...
It's hard to understand.
But I think people do need to understand that there are millions of pieces of paper in the White House. And for more than 2 years now, people have been diligently searching. But, you know, it's something that I can't explain because I wasn't part of finding it, didn't even know it was there. But I'm glad it was found.
Why don't you just go up to Capitol Hill and talk to the Senate committee yourself and get this all over with?
Well, we'll cooperate, and we'll do whatever is necessary. There is nobody who wants this over more than I do. I really want it to be finished with, to bring this matter to an end.
And if it takes your going and testifying yourself, you'll go?
I'll do whatever it takes to cooperate.
I have a tough question to ask you.
Oh, dear. All your questions.
Right. Do you think that you are becoming more of a negative than a positive force for your husband? Are you becoming a political liability?
Oh, I hope not, because I love my husband, and I really believe in what he's doing, and I want to help him. But I have campaigned with him for, you know, gosh, ever since I've known him, and I'm going to do the same thing in this upcoming election. At the end of the day, the American people will know we have nothing to cover up. There is nothing that we have done that should be of any concern to anyone. We've tried, maybe not as smartly as we could have, to answer people's questions, but we'll keep doing the best we know how.
When we come back, more of Barbara's exclusive interview. Mrs. Clinton on the plight of children in America, the question of abortion, divorce, and the times she's had to bite her tongue in her own marriage. Stay with us.
Of the 12 jurors deciding the case, he decided on her.
I know who you are when you wake up.
She knows he's watching. She knows he's waiting.
All you have to do is say not guilty.
Now, who will protect you? Justice is in the hands of the juror.
Stay out of our lives.
Demi Moore, Alec Baldwin, from the chilling bestseller, The Juror, rated R, at theaters February 2nd.
McDonald salutes the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Hey, Grandpa.
Hi, Stacy.
Oh, look, you got my favorite cereal, Honey Bunches of Oats.
No, that's my favorite cereal.
No way. You eat these?
I love this stuff. It's crunchy, sweet.
Grandpa, you realize you're like into the same thing me and my friends are into.
Good. Let's invite them over.
Who wouldn't love Honey Bunches of Oats? Crunchy honey roasted oats with crispy corn and wheat flakes.
You know, even my parents eat these.
And you still like it?
No, it's amazing, huh?
Honey Bunches of Oats cereal. The one taste everyone loves.
Attention, persons with an asbestos-related injury. The Celotex Corporation and Kerry Canada, Inc. have filed a plan of reorganization in U.S. bankruptcy court, which establishes a trust to compensate persons who have asbestos bodily injury claims. Claims must be filed no later than March 15, 1996. Claimants with properly filed claims that are estimated by the court will be entitled to vote on the plan and considered for compensation if the court confirms the plan. For further information, call 1-800-353-5233.
For anyone who's ever looked longingly, waited patiently, and dreamed hopelessly,
There's something of great importance I need to tell you.
Comes Jane Austen's most impassioned love story, Sense and Sensibility. Time magazine hails it as the best picture of the year. and Newsweek raves it's brilliant. Nominated for 6 Golden Globe Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actress Emma Thompson. Sense and Sensibility, rated PG, now at select theaters.
Next week, Richard Dreyfuss and Angelica Houston.
Plus the mind-body connection in exercise as New Year, New You continues.
Good Morning America, next week, here on ABC.
What if a perfect stranger said she was having an affair with your husband?
Who are you?
And that he was planning to have you killed?
Eric doesn't want to divorce you. He wants you dead.
And what if it were true? Cheryl Ladd, Kiss and Tell, Monday on ABC.
There are so many questions about Bosnia that kids and their parents want answered. Watch the Peter Jennings Family Special together, Saturday at noon, 11 Central and Pacific.
Today is the publication date for Hillary Clinton's new book about children. Mrs. Clinton, as we have already seen, has strong opinions, and so it is with her proposals to help our children. The book is titled, It Takes a Village, meaning it's everyone's job, not just parents, to raise America's children. Mrs. Clinton says she wrote the book herself, and the White House provided her copious longhand notes to prove it. For this book seems to represent Mrs. Clinton's deepest concerns. Your book takes some very strong stands. This is not what some people thought was going to be a nice, soft book to show that you had a softer image. One of the controversial parts of your book has to do with health care. Remember health care?
Yes, I do, very well.
Okay. You speak of Medicare for older people, and you want it for children. You want universal health care for children. You want federally funded or funded early education, Head Start. You want funding for proper daycare. You seem to be swimming against the tide. You know, all we hear about is less government, less money. You're saying just the opposite.
Well, that's because I think the tide is not going in the right direction. I think we are causing ourselves a lot of problems because we are not doing what it takes to support families. And I mean hold them accountable, hold them responsible. I believe strongly in marriage. I think that divorce should be harder for people with children. I want people to take responsibility for themselves and their kids. But at the same time, I'm out there. I know how hard it is for most Americans right now. They don't have a place to put their child that is safe and good unless it can be subsidized. So for me, this is going in the right direction because in the long run, it is cheaper than prisons, it is cheaper than violence, it is cheaper than tearing at the quality of our life together.
Let's talk about some of the social issues. You have said that this is children who have one parent are 2 to 3 times as likely to have emotional and behavioral problems as children living in 2-parent families, more likely to drop out of school, get pregnant, etc., and remarriage of their parents doesn't seem to better the odds. What's your solution to the one-parent dilemma?
What you've just recited from my book is the case, that we need more parents to both get married and stay married in order to support children. There will always be exceptions. I write about my mother-in-law who endured, I think, violence and abuse that should have led to a divorce. But in many instances today, it is not that extreme a case. And I think we ought to do a little more, both to help parents stay together, but if it's inevitable that they are going to divorce, to provide education and counseling so that they don't let their problems affect their children.
And then in your book, you weave in your own personal experiences, and you say, my strong feelings about divorce and its effect on children have caused me to bite my tongue more than a few times during my own marriage.
Right.
When?
Oh,
why? Oh, I can't
all
wait
the time. I think any couple...
You've considered divorce?
No, never divorce. But certainly I have thought hard about how a situation can escalate out of hand. You have to really be committed to it, and you have to be willing to make compromises and to bite that tongue from time to time.
To make that marriage last almost no matter what.
Yeah, at least during the childhood of those children, yes.
You've heard the expression, murder yes, divorce no?
Well, yes, I have.
Did that ever apply to you?
No, but maybe short of that. I've had, you know, just like all of us, we've had our ups and our downs, but it's been such a great commitment for us, and I think having Chelsea made it even stronger.
I want to talk a little bit about Chelsea. She's going to be 16 next month.
Yes, she is.
You've kept her out of the press, and the press has been really pretty good about it. But
yes.
She'll be going off to college. Tell us just a little bit about her. What is she interested in? What do you think she wants to do?
Well, she is still very interested in ballet. Right now she wants to learn to drive and get a driver's license, which is something I'm living in fear and trembling of. But her father, which is very scary, is teaching her how to drive. So they're having
Well, there
a
goes
good
that
time.
relationship. Yeah.
You know, they were doing everything from parallel parking to backing up. When I came back, I said, well, how'd it go? How'd it go? And she said, well, I think Dad learned a lot. You know, so they really have a good time. But she'll be looking at college, and I'm just not looking forward to that myself. I will miss her so much.
Let's not use Chelsea as an example, but if you had a teenage daughter who became pregnant and wanted to have an abortion, not have the baby, would you support it?
Oh, gosh. I just even can't imagine that decision. I would do whatever I could to support her, and it would be a terrible decision. And we can avoid that being the choice if children are given good, responsible information and ability to say no at an earlier age.
Do you feel that a parent should be notified if an underage daughter wants to have an abortion?
I believe in parental notification. I think there are exceptions. There are situations in which the family is so dysfunctional that parental notification is not appropriate. But in general, I do believe. I think that families should be part of helping their children through this.
If your husband is reelected, how will you follow up with the suggestions that are made in this book?
Well, one thing I'll do is try to talk as much as possible about it, because I don't really want people necessarily to agree with me, but I want the state of our children to be the national conversation. I want to have a conference this spring bringing together many of the people I talk about in the book, those who are actually on the front lines doing the work. Let's find out about that. Let's bring it home.
You write about people pigeonholing people, especially women and men. Do you think the American people are ready yet to have a First Lady who has strong opinions and an agenda?
I think so. I think some are and some aren't. And I believe that this has been a learning experience for me, coming here and not really understanding all the expectations that people sort of put on this role.
Tell me your greatest disappointment.
I think that I didn't know more before I got here about how I could have done a better job from the very beginning. I really do think that there could have been some different ways of pursuing health care that might have. I'm not saying it would have, because it's such a political issue, but I think I could have done some things differently, and I just could have known more. I could have been better prepared for what I was getting into. Not that I would have been fully prepared. There is nothing that prepares you for this experience. But I think I could have avoided some of the mistakes I made.
There is a nursery rhyme in your book. You know the one I'm talking about?
I think I do, yes.
I could say it, but you say it.
This is one of my favorites from when I used to read to Chelsea. As I was standing in the street, as quiet as could be, a great big ugly man came up and tied his horse to me. You know, I've always loved that, because in every person's life, the unexpected, the disappointing, the hardship, it always comes. None of us has a clear sail through life. We all have problems, and sometimes we don't even know where they're coming from or why they're happening. And it's really a challenge to just kind of keep going every single day.
I must remember that nursery rhyme from her book.
Right. You know, what's fascinating is that in spite of her attempts to change her image, sort of become more traditional, more behind the scenes.
If indeed she was trying to, yeah.
Yeah, she still is at the center of a storm. Is this book of hers going to help her any with that, do you think?
I don't think it's going to make a difference to the Whitewater investigations. I think there will still be a great many people who will say, when she says, I don't approve of this, even though she doesn't order it, isn't that enough to make people jump and do what she wants to do?
The power of the position.
That's right. What this book will give her is a forum to discuss the book, which has many very good social agencies that can help people and so forth. It will give her the chance to show what she is, and a First Lady with opinions and a First Lady with knowledge. We have never had a First Lady write a serious book while in the White House. We have not had a First Lady quite like this.
I think people will be interested in where the money this book yields will go.
It's going to go to children's hospitals, and the National Association of Children's Hospitals will help Mrs. Clinton decide where it goes.
Very good. Thank you, Barbara. Well, next, a meeting you're not going to forget. Total strangers brought together by a magnificent gift. Bob Brown has their triumphant stories after this.
12 Monkeys is the #1 movie in America. 4 stars.
Do you realize where he thinks he comes from?
12 Monkeys is one of the year's very best films. 12 Monkeys, rated R. Now playing.
When it comes to mutual funds, it's often hard to tell what you're looking at. Is this one better? Or this one? Schwab makes finding funds that may be right for you easy with the Select List. Each quarter, we analyze the more than 350 no-load funds we provide, based on data from Morningstar, to give you a summary of the historically high performers. For a free trial subscription, call 1-800-5-NO-LOAD and see if it doesn't help bring things into focus.
What did your kids have for dinner last night?
It was some chicken and, noodly stuff.
Burgers and,
that stuff. It was like stuff.
Not exactly Total Recall, but make them stovetop stuffing. You know, that tempting smell that fills the house? You might even get some nice stuff back.
Cool.
Then watch their memories improve.
Last night was stovetop and stuff.
Make them stovetop, because everything else is just stuff. Make a little or make a lot with stovetop in the canister.
If you own a home or other structure with exterior inner seal siding made by Louisiana Pacific, under the terms of a nationwide class action settlement, you may be entitled to money to replace damaged siding. This siding looks like normal wood siding. A class action lawsuit alleges that the siding may rot, crack, or deteriorate. To find out if you are eligible for money to replace damaged siding, call 1-800-245-2722 or write for more information.
Authorized by the U.S. District Court, Portland, Oregon.
The votes are in. Leaving Las Vegas is the winner of the Best Picture of the Year. Winner, Best Actor of the Year. And winner, Best Actress of the Year. Leaving Las Vegas, a love story. Rated R. Now playing at select theaters.
Sunday from the director of Heat. In the savage frontier, their forbidden love became a fight for survival. Daniel Day-Lewis and Madeline Stowe.
Stay alive, no matter what occurs. I will find you.
The Last of the Mohicans, Sunday on ABC. Parental discretion advised. A world premiere miniseries.
In this quiet suburban neighborhood.
A triple murder. What would you do if someone you love
Charges rape, 3 counts of homicide.
was sentenced to die for a murder he didn't commit?
There's baby killer.
Hal Holbrook and Rick Schroeder.
My son is not guilty.
Based on a true story. Innocent Victims, Sunday, January 21st.
Seeing is believing. Now they can do it. Exciting new surgery that promises to let you throw away your glasses when 2020 continues after this from our ABC stations.
Sunday, when Jimmy's dad comes to town.
What are you doing here?
Metropolis becomes Spy Central.
Hold it right there.
New in town, and when Lois and Clark.
They bugged our computers.
He's got his hands on nearly everything.
Discover Mr. Olson is really a master spy.
It's a one-man army. So what do you guys think of my dad?
He won't let anyone get in his way.
What's on the computer, Jimmy? What are you gonna do, kill me and take it?
Not even his own son.
No, Jimmy!
An all-new Lois and Clark, Sunday on ABC.
Tonight, total coverage on Eyewitness News at 10.
Every time I hear somebody reaching out to us, I'm reaching back to them.
They lost 2 sons to CO poisoning. Now a family shares how Minnesotans are helping them through the healing process. I'm Chris Canangla. Plus, we'll tell you about a parking crisis that is about to explode in Minneapolis neighborhoods.
And the January thaw is ahead. I'm Dave Dahl. All of your weekend weather forecast. Don't miss Eyewitness News at 10.
America's children. Millions pushed toward poverty by higher taxes. Over 1 million get substandard health care. Education cut, $30 billion. Environmental protection gutted. Drastic Republican budget cuts. But the president's plan protects Medicare, Medicaid, education, environment. And even Republican leaders agree it balances the budget in 7 years. Congress should not slash Medicare and Medicaid. It should balance the budget and do our duty to our children.
Ow! It's the final 4 days of Wickes Furniture's biggest sale of the year. Put no money down with no payments due for 1 year. It's Wickes' biggest sale of the year. It's big!
A morning ride to school turns deadly for a Twin Cities teen. The story tonight at 10.
From ABC News, 2020 continues. Once again, Barbara Walters.
Well, imagine deliberately subjecting yourself to a hospital stay when you're perfectly healthy, enduring anesthesia, a serious medical procedure, and physical discomfort, all to help someone you've never even met. You're about to meet people who have done exactly that. Why would anyone want to do such a thing? As Bob Brown weaves their stories, you just might understand.
The Dunns are coming, and the McMahons are waiting for them. The families have never met before, but they've been anticipating this moment for a year, because when Rhonda Dunn of Rocky Mount, North Carolina leaves her car, Les McMahon of Cape Cod, Massachusetts will set eyes for the first time on the person who saved her life.
Oh, I'm crying already.
Okay.
Boy, you're just like I pictured you. How are you?
I couldn't wait to meet her and her children and to just know that I was going to be a part of their lives for the rest of my life, and she was always going to be a part of my life.
You're adorable.
The McMahon's children, Katie and Danny, were next in line to meet Rhonda and her husband Scott, and to thank her for the extraordinary gift the two women now have in common. Their mother is living with an immune system transplanted from Rhonda Dunn. This story is about how those life and death ties were built by science. But it's also about everyone who's had a feeling in a crisis that someone unknown was looking out for them.
My doctor said, you're severely anemic. And they said, you know, have you been dizzy? Have you had a great weight loss? Have you had night sweats? And I just said no to all of the above.
Because she had suffered no outward symptoms, Les McMahon and her husband Don were completely unprepared for the diagnosis she received.
I was horrified to find out that my wife was diagnosed with leukemia. All I knew about leukemia was that you die from leukemia.
Her only chance of overcoming the leukemia, a cancer of the blood, was to have a bone marrow transplant. But no one in her immediate family was a suitable match as a donor. Instead, they had to hope that a donor could be found somewhere on a list of nearly 2 million volunteers.
So we waited. And we prayed a lot and hoped a lot, and you know, it was a tough time.
What would you say in your prayers?
I really wasn't praying for me. I was praying for my children, because I had 2 young kids that needed me. You know, and I knew that I couldn't leave. I knew that we were going to find a donor. I knew we were.
While the McMahons prayed for a match, in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, a young woman who was just beginning her career as a high school chemistry teacher was hoping to be called.
About 3 or 4 to agree. Move your desk.
Encouraged by a mother she remembers as caring and compassionate, Rhonda Dunn responded to a drive to sign up bone marrow donors. Volunteering involves only a blood test so the donor can be typed. But if a match is made, donating the marrow requires minor surgery. And in her 26 years, Rhonda had never seen the inside of a hospital.
I don't think I ever got nervous until I walked into the hospital that day, and I realized that I had never been in the hospital before. And the Red Cross coordinators I could see were worried, because you can back out at any time. And I can remember looking over at them and saying, don't worry, I'm going to go through. I'm fine. I'm just a little scared, but I'm going to be fine.
Here's how the process works. This footage was supplied by the National Marrow Donor Program. The donor is placed under an anesthetic, and the marrow is then extracted through a needle and syringe from the back of the pelvis. The match with the recipient must be closer even than the match for heart or liver transplants, because the marrow carries with it the immune system, and the donation is timed to coincide with a careful preparation of the recipient.
You undergo the 2 days of chemotherapy and then the 4 days of radiation. So by that time, you're feeling pretty bad.
Recipients and donors aren't allowed to know each other's names for at least a year, so the results of the transplant can run their course.
I have 5 tiny scars in my lower back, but they should fade in time.
But Rhonda immediately sent a note to her recipient through the Red Cross, signing it anonymously.
Hope to hear from you soon. Love, your donor.
She was back at school teaching without missing a beat, by then a celebrity of sorts.
Rhonda is truly a hero to us, and we're very proud, and we love her very much.
Her school took up a collection to buy a young sapling to plant in her yard. Rhonda got her first letter from her anonymous recipient, and so began a series of exchanges.
By the way, when I got your first letter, I cried too. Scott couldn't understand my overwhelming emotions, but when I read it, it made you seem real, a real person.
We really created a friendship. over the year, and we found we're both teachers, and she's the youngest of 3, and I'm the youngest of 3, and she lost her mom just last summer.
My mom did not make it through the surgery. She passed away June 21st. I cannot tell you how hurt I have felt. My mom was also my best friend.
And I lost my mom 6 months prior to my diagnosis, so I could really understand how she felt.
I always felt that I would be called, and when I was being tested for you, I kind of felt deep down that I was going to be your match. I'm so glad that I was. Being a donor has really changed my life.
June 3rd's your birthday, and you're turning, what, 26?
26.
Gosh.
In April of 1995, we brought the Dunns with us to Massachusetts, so they and the McMahons could finally meet after the first year of the transplant had passed and proved a success. There were the initial exchanges of gifts, a corsage, a cake, small things of necessity, to acknowledge that what Rhonda did, she did expecting nothing in return.
I touched her life, but she touched mine also. I think I'm a better person because of it. She made me realize how special life was.
In the course of a year, we brought together another donor and recipient who continued the story that the Dunns and the McMahons had begun for us. Bob and Debbie Demian already had gone through a long and heart-wrenching process of needing a bone marrow transplant for their daughter. When that experience motivated them to join the list as donors, what happened next was a match that defied the laws of chance.
You might call it fate or, higher plan. Maybe God had this plan for us all along. You can't really ever know.
The Demians and their 2 children, Kelsey and Ryan, live in Youngstown, Ohio. Their first daughter, Taylor Ann, was a Down syndrome child who also had to battle leukemia from the time of her birth. When she reached the age of 2, more urgently needing a bone marrow transplant, the Demians increasingly worried that no one in their immediate family was a match. A drive to seek donors was followed by the local media, but the breakthrough came from overseas.
The Demians were just told that a full match donor may have been found in France.
The bone marrow was flown to the U.S., and local fundraisers helped pay the Demians' expenses to Seattle, where the transplant was performed, and the Demians began a long wait for results.
And I tried real hard not to cry in front of her because I wanted things to be as normal as possible for her. And I thought she had fallen asleep, and I let a tear fall, and she put her head up, and she wiped my tear and kissed my cheek and put her head down like she was taking care of me more. And that's something that, I just think she understood that we were doing what we had to do for her.
But after 2 months of seemingly good results, the cancer returned. The bone marrow transplant had failed.
And I crawled in bed and I picked her up and I held her, and she opened her eyes one last time and looked at me, and I shook my head yes, and she took her last breath then. And like she was waiting for me to say I'd be all right.
Taylor Ann died in 1991, just before her 4th birthday. Debbie Demian, who teaches early childhood development, and Bob, a postal carrier, returned to their daily routines, happy to have 2 healthy children, always knowing that Taylor Ann would hold her place in their family as well. Both Bob and Debbie signed up for the bone marrow registry as donors, and it was Bob who got the call that he was a potential match for a recipient. The rest of the news exceeded his hopes.
They told us that it was going to be for a little girl.
And it was strictly by coincidence that it went to a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As soon as I hung up the phone, I just had this sense of relief and became quite emotional, actually. And somehow, I kind of knew it was going to be me. It just seemed like there was a reason for everything that happened. I think I remember saying the word finally. Like, finally there's a good reason why Taylor died. It's like she died, another person lives.
The bone marrow traveled from Youngstown, Ohio to Surrey, British Columbia, to a girl who had immigrated with her family to Canada from Bombay, India. She is Valerie Nazareth, the daughter of Trevor and Cecilia Nazareth. Her class at Maple Green Elementary School chronicled Valerie's fight with leukemia. She was hospitalized at the age of 10 for chemotherapy. And when her condition had grown so bad that doctors considered foregoing any hopes of a marrow transplant, the search for a donor produced the match. And one other thing. Matches are most likely to be made between donors and recipients from the same racial or ethnic backgrounds. Valerie's marrow, her parents were told, had come from a white American from the Midwest.
There wasn't any rejection.
So here you are, starting so many continents apart, and yet somehow this perfect match.
So it looked like it so was a miracle.
And the miracle, after a year had passed, was still working. So Robert Demian became a name to the Nazareths and their friends after a year of anonymous correspondence. And on September 25th, 1995, the Demians set out with us on a journey to Vancouver, not only to meet Valerie, but also to reassure Valerie's parents of what their own experience had taught them.
I still think about the donor that gave to Taylor, and I pray for her every day that she's having a wonderful, blessed life because of what the chance she gave our little girls. So I think I understand what they're feeling, but I don't want them to feel that way. I don't want them to be indebted to us, to feel indebted to us, you know, because this isn't something we did for that reason. This is something we did because had to do it.
That's right. Hi, Valerie. How you doing, honey? I'm so happy to see you. You look more beautiful in person than the pictures. Hi.
Hey,
nice to meet you. You're so welcome. You're welcome. I'm so happy to help.
It was exceptional enough that a match was made. More so that, as chance turned out, a family that had lost a child saved a child. That this father from Youngstown, this daughter from Bombay, had overcome so many odds. Appropriately enough, the next day was Valerie's 12th birthday.
Oh, I feel great. I mean, this has been a wonderful experience. Valerie's pretty shy, but I think I know how she felt, though.
Around Valerie's neck hung a small charm that the Demians had sent with the shipment that included her bone marrow. Someone very special, it read. Maple Green Elementary School, where Valerie is back in class, wouldn't let Bob Demian return to Youngstown without a visit and a photo.
Hi, kids. Hi, Katie.
At first, all the people we met may seem to have been joined by fate. The McMahons and the Dunns, and the Demians and the Nazareths, because at any given time, according to the National Marrow Donor Program, around 2,000 active searches are being conducted to find a match among nearly 2 million names. But sometimes fate gets too much credit for what people have done.
People can be wonderful, can't they, Bob? It seems these people are likely to continue their relationship, I suppose.
It does. They certainly have since they met. Rhonda and Les talk to each other every couple of weeks. They've exchanged Christmas gifts. And Rhonda is now organizing a drive in her hometown to recruit other bone marrow donors. And the Demians and the Nazareths as well have continued to correspond.
Is it always a good idea for the people to meet?
Well, that is always a point worth raising because before these meetings take place, they need to be seriously considered by all parties for the potential emotional consequences, if there are any, and for the understanding that there are no obligations in this process. It's done strictly from the heart when it's done.
I've always admired blood donors, but these seem even more giving. It's a fantastic thing. Thank you, Bob.
Gee, that was nice, Bob. Well, next, if you hate the thought of wearing glasses, maybe you don't have to. Dr. Timothy Johnson has a medical breakthrough that may change your view of the world. Stay with us.
Whoever said the heart has no place in business never had a child to pass it on to. I've got to set things up right to make sure he's the one who gets all this. What's a legacy? Just another word for love.
Make sure the future is secure for your business and your family. Ask a Merrill Lynch financial consultant who can help with a plan and more ways to make the plan work than anyone else. The difference is planning. The difference is Merrill Lynch.
Critics are calling Mr. Holland's Opus one of the best pictures of the year. If you have the passion, then you ought to do what you want to do. A flat-out wonderful movie.
You love music and you made the kids love it with you.
Richard Dreyfuss is definitely Oscar-bound. It's in your head. It's in your heart. And Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs up.
Come meet your son.
The best of the best. Richard Dreyfuss. Mr. Holland's Opus, rated PG. Sneak preview Saturday, January 13th.
Introducing the 1 pound dinner party at Red Lobster.
It's Seafood Pounders. Incredible 1 pound dinners, like a heaping pound of shrimp, served in 4 delicious ways. A 1 pound lobster dinner, bursting with flavor. There's even a pound of the treasured king crab. Or try a 1 pound dinner of all 3 tastes on 1 plate. Now it's special prices. It's a lot of seafood piled high by the pound. So hurry in for Seafood Pounders, only at Red Lobster.
Today's internet topic.
What would you do to change the world?
End hunger.
Everyone gets a house.
Teach people to read. Share your lunch.
I would teach people a new language.
Plant a tree.
Make music.
Make peace.
Today, more students are using Apple Macintosh to share ideas on the internet than any other computer.
What would you do?
ABC News 2020 will continue in a moment.
Spanning the globe, Katarina Witt headlines a ladies' competition in the NutraSweet World Challenge of Champions Saturday on the season premiere of Wide World.
His phone's been off the hook for over an hour. We better get out there.
Never assume you know the whole truth, because Monday, everything changes when a key suspect is eliminated. Stephen Bochco's Murder One, now on Mondays at 10/9 Central on ABC.
It's the most riveting NYPD Blue ever as the 15th precinct explodes into a racial war zone.
I was not comfortable with those words.
I was throwing it back at him.
You don't get to throw that back.
If you can only watch one new Blue, watch this Tuesday. Viewer discretion advised.
Ford Credit announces the Great Percent event, slashing interest rates to just 4.8% APR for 48 months, or choose $600 cash back on a purchase or $600 back on a red carpet lease. It's your choice on 10 1996 models, including Ford Taurus, Ford Contour, Ford Probe, Ford Windstar, Ford Escort, and more. But 4.8% financing or $600 cash back won't last forever. The Great Percent event at your Ford dealer now. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Well, word is spreading, and so is the excitement. A medical breakthrough is revolutionizing the treatment of nearsighted vision. Tonight, Dr. Timothy Johnson will show you how it's done. You'll be amazed at what advanced technology and skilled hands can achieve. And someday soon, your doctor may say, throw away your glasses.
They've made them better looking, more stylish, with different colors and interesting shapes. They tell us they are even youthful, sporty, sexy. But no matter what they do to the frames, they are still glasses, and for millions of Americans, they are a royal pain.
If they don't fit over your ear tightly enough, then they'll slip off.
Constantly scratching them, keeping them clean is a joke.
When it rains on your glasses, it's a problem.
They break often. My cat steps on them.
Most younger Americans need glasses or contact lenses because they are nearsighted. That is, they can't focus on objects at a distance. Here's why. Normally, the front curved part of the eye, the cornea, helps to bend light waves coming in so they focus on the retina, the back part of the eye that sends light signals to the brain. Nearsightedness occurs when light rays focus in front of the retina. Glasses or contacts bring that focus back to normal. But what about something other than glasses or contacts to correct the focus? In 1973, this Russian doctor introduced the first surgical treatment to eliminate glasses for nearsightedness. It is called radial keratotomy, RK for short, and it was first done in this country in 1978. RK involves placing 4 to 8 incisions in the cornea like spokes in a wheel. As those incisions heal, the cornea flattens, causing less bending of light rays.
You're doing super, Linda.
Because RK allows most people to throw away their glasses, millions in this country have had it done. But many millions more were waiting for something better. And for many, that something is the laser.
Last October, after 7 years of study, Summit Technology of Waltham, Massachusetts,
became the first company to win FDA approval for the use of the laser to treat nearsightedness. The Summit laser is already in use at nearly 100 centers, and the predictions are that the laser will be 6 times more popular than RK, the knife procedure. The laser procedure is called photorefractive keratectomy, or PRK for short. It involves using a computer-guided laser to carefully reshape the front part of the cornea, thereby causing flattening.
It employs a laser which is a very accurate instrument and is essentially robotic surgery. The surgeon only has to program the laser properly and be sure it's aimed right.
Cons.
The cons of PRK are that the recovery is slow. It takes a week for the vision to come back. There is some pain afterwards. The other con is that the procedure takes about a year to settle down. So the final outcome isn't known for somewhere between 6 and 12 months.
But many patients who were hesitant about RK apparently believe the laser is the answer. Susie Patton has come to UCLA Medical Center to see Dr. Robert Maloney, who does 15 PRK procedures a week. Although he had done it earlier, Dr. Maloney, for our cameras, repeats her vision test. She can only read the first 2 lines. Then Susie is prepared for the laser. She gets medicine to numb the eye and eliminate pain. Dr. Maloney then puts in a retainer to hold the eyelids in place so Susie doesn't blink. Next, he actually tests the laser so Susie knows what it looks and sounds like.
Look right at the green light, and here we go with the practice. You can see it's a bit of a surprise, but it doesn't hurt at all.
Finally, in a matter of seconds, it's over.
Very nice, right at the green light. Perfect, you're all finished. You did great.
Now, Dr. Maloney checks Susie's vision. Not only can Susie read the top 2 lines, she can now read down all the way to the 8th line.
I knew that the first time I could only read the top 2 lines, and then when I kept going down, I was like, oh, this is amazing, you know, they can really see.
However, Dr. Waring and a few others are experimenting with a new version of laser surgery called LASIK, in which the surgeon first cuts a flap from the cornea, which can then be put back in place after laser reshaping. This flap hastens healing and reduces pain, but the procedure requires more surgical skill, and the flap can produce complications such as infection. FDA approval is at least a year away.
This is fantastic, Tim. Joining us now from Boston is Dr. Timothy Johnson. Tim, should everybody who's nearsighted do this?
Well, in order to qualify for the 2 procedures now approved, RK and PRK, you have to be at least 21. You have to have relatively stable vision. In other words, it can't be changing. You have to be free of other eye problems. And maybe most importantly, they are approved only for mild to moderate nearsightedness. So if you have very severe nearsightedness, these procedures are not yet available. The LASIK procedure, by the way, may be utilized in people with even severe nearsightedness. About 80–90% of people with nearsightedness would qualify for one of these 2 procedures.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it something they should do next year, or is there something even better that's going to happen?
Well, it's certainly not a life and death matter, and I would say that unless a person is ready to take the plunge, probably with the new laser procedure because it's going to be available and it's standardized, they might want to wait until this new one that we just described quickly at the end is available. I would say it's important to go to a doctor who can do more than just one type of procedure, who can decide which one is best for you.
And no downside, no danger?
Well, there's a slight risk of a puncture or something that's extremely rare. The big risk is that you may have to have another procedure if the vision isn't corrected enough, or the correction may go too far, and you may have to wear glasses for that reason. But most people are very satisfied.
Well, as someone who's worn glasses and contact lenses, I just think it's absolutely amazing. We'll be right back. Thank you, Tim.
I'm Chris Canangla. A Minnesota couple struggles after losing their